Today I am going to try to make an oil paint with some malachite pigment. It was a rock that I was gifted. Truthfully, it's a beautiful pigment. It's light fast. This has been in the window for multiple years. So this was a purchased malachite pigment here, and this is the pigment that I was given in rock form, and it is absolutely fine. But I have been having some trouble with it as a watercolor. I don't know if it's because the sample I have isn't pure malachite, or if it's because I've contaminated it somehow because I've kept some of these in with my ochre pigments. But let me show you what happens to this. I know I've shown you this before. This is all painted with this paint. When I add water to this, it turns... Maybe it won't do it because this is a new one that I made. No, that looks pretty good. Oh, it's going. So it tends to start to turn yellow. So I add the water to this. Can you see that? A little bit of a yellow. Let's see if I can put it down on the paper. Yeah. So it turns this almost apple green. Can you see the difference between this and the one right after I made it? The interesting thing is that's what happens, and then as it dries, it turns back into the malachite green. So I don't know what's going on, but it's making it difficult to paint with as a watercolor. And again, I'm not sure if it's because I've contaminated it somehow or if it's my sample, but that's the way it is. But I have been making oil paints, so I thought it might be fun to just see what happens with an oil paint and this particular sample. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to stick a mask on because all these copper pigments, well, anything dusty you don't want to breathe, but especially not the copper. So I'm going to sound funny here. All right, so let's start with this. And the only thing I can find, or so far what I found online about malachite and oil paints, is that the color changes if the oil darkens. This is linseed oil, which can darken over time. I have some poppy seed oil that I usually mix with my lighter paints when I paint because that doesn't darken over time. But right now this is what I'm using because this is what I grabbed out of the garage. Apologies, it's going to be a little bit loud. All right, let's check it out on some paper. First, I'll swatch out the watercolor. Right. There's the watercolor. Now, let's swatch out this oil. It's not totally mulled, but you'll get the idea. Oh gosh, look at how pretty that is. Oops. Wow. You can still see the grainy, but I'll mull it up the rest of the way. Actually, they're both beautiful. This is a really pretty color, but it really does go yellow now. All right, so I have finished mulling this up, and I just want to show you, I have swatched it on to the canvas panel that I did the other ones on yesterday. That is such a spectacular color. And then I also swatched it onto my paper in my journal book. And Again, just going to show it to you here next to the watercolor that I'm having trouble with. I grabbed one of my other ones out of one of my dry ones, and so this is the watercolor. See how yellow that is? When it dries, it's going to turn back into this color again. So who knows what's going on with that, but the oil paint so far looks fantastic. I did this with linseed oil, but I went into the garage and grabbed the poppy oil. Supposedly, this oil yellows the least over time of all the oils, supposedly. So what I tend to do is mix my lighter colors with this when I'm painting oil paint. So I'm going to probably go back and do that again with this and then swatch them next to each other and see. I mean, and I think over time means like probably after I'm dead. So somebody else will have to check that part out for me. Alrighty, malachite oil paint, success.